Posey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It seems there's never a shortage of omnipresent defenders of the non-existent problems of the people. I wonder how many people each of you have in your compliance department.
Representative, Towpath Credit Union has one employee that works in compliance but also wears many other hats, and then we share a compliance officer with 2 other credit unions. We cooperate within credit unions and we share resources and people and funds. Okay. So 1.5.
How many did you have in 2007?
None.
Okay. Ms. Richards.
Congressman, my bank has one compliance officer, and just like Ms. Bartolomucci, he also wears many hats, and then we also have an assistant compliance officer, so 1.5 essentially.
How many did you have in 2007?
We had 1.
Okay. What are the regulations, same question to both of you, what are the regulations that you feel are most burdensome to your institutions?
For me, Congressman, it's not one specific regulation that I would point to as being the most burdensome. It's simply the cumulative effect of one layer of regulation being laid on top of another layer on top of another layer. It's simply that cumulative effect that really hampers us.
Representative, agreed. It's just the constant amount of changes in the regulatory environment which causes our credit union to continue spending the resources of our members. So it's just a continual, constant, it's like make the regulation and then stop so that we can take a breath and work with our members.
Somebody told me that there's no 2 institutions in the nation that do a home loan disclosure exactly alike. They have made that so confusing with the changes to it. How about regulations regarding what's placed on accrual or non-accrual? I mean, we've heard from people who had regulators come in, for example, and say, we don't think this motel should be able to make their payments right now, given this tough economy. And the banker said, well, it's a 30% loan-to-value ratio. It's an 11-year-old loan, and they have never been 1 minute, not 1 second late in this whole time. There's no problem with this. And the regulator said, well, we don't care. We're putting it on non-accrual. We don't think they should be able to make their payments. Do you ever have an experience like that?
I think that's a perfect example of regulator roulette. You really don't know what you're going to get in an exam. There could be one examiner that might give you one answer and another examiner that might give you a completely different answer. So that's regulatory risk, and yes, we've seen that in our institution before.
Okay.
And we know that regulators have their job to do as we have our job to do, and we really try to work as best as we possibly can with our regulators. And there's, from time to time we agree to disagree, but at the end of the day, they're the regulator.
Yeah. I've heard quite a few over-regulator horror stories. Obviously, very few people are willing to come forward and say it in public because they tremble at the repercussions they could get from the regulator. They said, well, we might win this battle, but we'll be penalized in so many more ways. When it seems oftentimes, they're not supposed to, I guess, by regulation, put something on non-accrual because it's upside down on an appraisal. But they do it anyway, and the bankers are afraid to complain about it.
Well, in my unique role as the regulator in the state of Ohio, I really took the position of really partnering up with our credit unions and really trying to work with them, because our credit unions are really trying to do the right thing every day and all day long. And so that's the stance that I took, and we would work with them because they knew what they were doing. They may have fallen on some hard times because of the economy, and we were able to work with them to bring them back through that economy and withstand all the pressures of the regulatory environment.
You ever hear the OCC people doing that?
No, sir, I have not.
I see my time's up. Madam Chair, thank you. I yield back.
Thank you. Mr.